Well, welcome everybody. Welcome to Photography Schoolhouse and our presentation of starting your Valentine Boudoir business for 2017 and start making money now. Now, the slide says in 3 steps. We're actually going to do 3 presentations, and I'll get more into that in a couple of minutes. But we're also going to do 3 live broadcasts from the studio for actual sessions. So it's going to be a total of 6 steps, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. And before I get too far into the subject matter itself, I want to give you a little bit of background over what we've done, how we arrived at this plan. And I guess I'm stumbling around a little bit. What I'm trying to say is, there's so much kind of photographic education being offered today, and as far as I can tell, and I've been in this business for quite a while, if some of you know me, a lot of it's just bull. I'm sorry, a lot of it's just bull. And I think people make exaggerated promises and everything else. So I've always been the kind of guy that believed very strongly that you should not be making statements that you can't back up with actual evidence. And that's kind of been the hallmark of Photography Schoolhouse. So I'll tell you the little story that's background to this presentation, and it started about 2 years ago. Now, I've been a photographer all my life, but I had recently, 2 years ago, I had moved to another area, into a city that I had no previous business in, and decided to open up a boudoir studio just to prove that I could start making money right away, and I could, in fact, build a full-fledged working boudoir studio in a year. Now, if you happen to follow that back in 2015, 2015 is when we did it. Got to get my years straight. When we documented every step, every promotion, everything that happened, everybody who walked in the door, we documented in amazing detail so that you'd have a real idea of what was going on and how we accomplished it. So we boiled down that information into this presentation. We presented it last year and we've updated it again for this year. That's why, hence the 2017. And we're going to, let me just get onto the right slide. That's me. We're going to get into what we're going to cover tonight. I'm trying to find that slide. I'll come back to that one. There we are. Tonight is the basics of lighting and set creation. Next week, January 12th, starting your marketing and getting clients. January 19th, the week after that, developing a shooting style, posing and product design. These are all lessons that we learned, and particularly in the marketing side of things. So that's me, Kerry Allen. If you don't know me, that's me, the old bald guy. So this whole thing is designed for somebody who's just getting into the business. Many of you might have already started a boudoir business and are wondering about ways of ramping it up, and there'll be a lot of good content in this presentation for you people as well. But we're making no assumptions. Well, the only assumption we're making is that you're brand new to this business and you just have an idea that this is what you want to do. So we're going to get into how you can do it and how you can do it affordably without going out and spending masses of money. Of course, you got to have a camera and probably some lenses, but how you could do it without buying a huge investment in lights or props, sets, backgrounds, all sorts of fancy things that you probably don't really need to buy. So, with that being said, these are the dates for the live studio sessions. January the 10th, which is a Tuesday at 7 p.m. Notice it's a different time than our webinar presentations. 7 p.m. Eastern Time, live broadcast from the studio, again on the 17th and again on the 24th. These are actual shoots where we're going to demonstrate the techniques that we use to accomplish this. So First thing we have to think about if we're going to do this professionally is what does it take to achieve success in this business? And this is difficult if you're new because the largest part is having good quality work. And that only comes with practice and repetition and trial and error to a certain degree. Um, but if that's what it takes, you got to go through that practice and trial and error and everything else and get your photography to the point where it's competitive in the industry. So in today's world, people will only pay for work that they can't do themselves. Something that is better than somebody can do on a cell phone. And cell phones today take remarkable photos. We all know that. We have to be better than all of that. I'll tell you a little story that just happened a couple of weeks ago. I got a new assistant starting at the studio. This assistant actually started out as a customer. She was a client about a year and a half ago and decided she wanted to get into photography and boudoir photography, so she's assisting. And she had told me the story of her girlfriend about the same time that she got her boudoir pictures done with us. Her girlfriend had another photographer do it, who was a friend of hers, who was a good, competent photographer, but kind of a part-time, a stringer. And the girlfriend initially thought her pictures were pretty good until our client brought home her pictures. And when compared side by side, you could see, I don't want to brag, but it was a remarkable difference. And that's what we have to do, is we have to do something that is remarkably different. If you're just another Me Too photographer, if all you're producing is the same work that anybody else can run out with a brand new cell phone and do just as well, you're going to have some serious problems. So if you can't do that, practice, work hard, shoot friends for free, do whatever you need to do to get your quality of work up. Attend workshops. There's a lot of stuff on Photography Schoolhouse on boudoir. There's a lot of stuff, period, all over the place. Look on the net, and you'll find 1,000 presentations, probably 10,000. If you can't achieve that quality, then just stop and go get another job. That's it. Sorry to sound kind of blunt about it, but there you go. So your job is to exceed their abilities and their expectations. You have to have people come in and be astonished at the work that they see. And we've been lucky in being able to achieve that. We've had numerous people recently, including recently, that have just been blown away. Remember one girl that was just before Christmas came in to see her proofs before placing her print order. By the way, she wound up buying every single one of them, the whole lot. Just sat there in astonishment saying, and she's like 19 years old. I'm like over 60. She just says, you know, you got some serious skills. That's the reaction you want. And everything you do has got to be about achieving that reaction. So we're going to get into how we do it and how you can probably go after that as well. So in the area of keeping expenses low, where can we shoot if we don't have a studio space, like a commercial studio? Well, I have on occasion rented hotel rooms for a day or a weekend and held sessions there. I don't just go for any old hotel room. I find a hotel that is something exceptional, some feature to it that is just a knockout feature that is going to allow us to do some stunning photography. In Phoenix, the last time we did it in Phoenix, downtown hotel, we rented, the top floor had penthouse suites. We rented a penthouse suite. And just had a fantastic time. I don't know if some of you were there, but hopefully, because it was a great time and an awesome shoot. But it's expensive when you start getting hotel rooms like that. We recently did one in Toronto, a very fancy kind of boutique hotel that caters to the artistic community, photographers and film production companies and things like that. It was $550 a night for this room, but it was exceptional, and we got some stunning pictures. So get something good if you're going to rent a hotel room. You can do it in the client's home. If they've got a nice place, yeah, you can haul everything over there and do a shoot in their home. Or if you have space in your house, apartment, or if you've carved out a studio space in your home. Some people I know have converted garages or spare rooms or rec rooms or anything like that. Sometimes you run into ceiling height issues, but don't worry about it. If you can stand up in a room, we can make it a boudoir studio. So you need some space. You could do it outdoors too. I think I'm going to slide about that somewhere. So the problem, obviously, with outdoors, I have clients right now who are asking for an outdoor shoot and have been for 6 months. They have a Harley. They want to do a boudoir on the Harley outdoors, and it's really hard to find a good location. So we're still working on that. And that's part of the problem of, boudoir outside. Anyways, shooting in a hotel. What are the advantages? Well, number one, if you pick the right room, it's already nicely decorated. You don't have to build a set. Everything you need is right there. Like I said before, scout for uniqueness, some unique feature of this room. In this case, the slide that's up on screen right now was actually from Phoenix, that hotel I told you about in the penthouse. And it had 2 or 3 rooms, and it had a wonderful balcony, and it had a bathroom with a big, huge jacuzzi in it. So it had lots of things that we could shoot with, and we did. We tried everything. And the trick to making this work is you've got to pre-sell several sessions for the same day. So that makes it a little bit harder, but get your marketing in gear and advertise it well in advance. Let people know that this is what you're going to do. And, whatever you feel you need, 1 every 2 hours. Some I know who are really successful in selling this have been able to have one client in hair and makeup while you're shooting another client. That's great if you can ramp up that kind of volume. I try, when I'm on location, more and more I'm trying to make it about available light as opposed to a lot of studio lighting, although I have studio lighting up the wazoo. And but I'm really entering or really love available light photography when we can do it. So just in case you got a problem, if you're going to a hotel, you should bring some portable flash and definitely some reflectors. And of course, some accessories and props. Bring those along with you. So here's a picture of us in Phoenix. You can see that we have 2 very large reflectors. And the one on the left-hand side of that picture is actually my mind's going to go blank now. It's got a rigid metal frame. It's a reflector. It might look like a softbox, but it's not. It's a reflector. And then you can see another one on the right-hand side. So that's pretty much what we used. We did have, and you see the lower picture, we did have a studio flash on a softbox. And where we used this is when we stood the model out on the balcony in the bright, bright, bright sunshine. Of course, she was going to be silhouetted against the bright background. So all we did was bring in a studio flash to act as a fill light to balance out the exposure. That would have been not easily done with a reflector. More pictures from that same room. Nice, beautiful windows with sheer curtains. Just a natural for some beautiful window light photography. So natural rooms versus a studio. When I say studio photography, we normally think of a backdrop and studio lights. And yeah, we have that too. And that's part of it, I guess. But I'm really, as I mentioned before, I'm really into this real room thing. So even though I have a studio, I'm working in basically a living room and making it look like a living room. I believe it creates a much more natural scene, or a bedroom, whatever, rather than just, pretty girl on a backdrop I'm kind of bored with that. We've seen it for years. I continue to see photographers upload work like that to Facebook all the time. And honestly, I feel that they're on the wrong road. Create real rooms. And it gives us a dynamic artistry that really is wonderful right now in this day and age. It's just perfect. So living rooms, you can shoot in yours or theirs, bedrooms, um, hotel rooms, as I said before. Create a studio in your home. You can get commercial space, but I'll tell you, if you're new at this business, or even if you're not, commercial space will eat you alive. Photography has had some tough times, and it's still a very tough and competitive market. Unless you've really ramped up your business, I would not commit to the overhead of a commercial space, not for years down the road. You can do it in your backyard. We've done that. We created some privacy screens and just did some stuff in the backyard. It was awesome. Can be a temporary space. You need to set it up and then you need to tear it down, and that's a bit of a hassle, but you know what? You do what you got to do. That's all there is to it. So why should we work in the studio now? Other than because it makes us awesome. And remember, when I say working in the studio, I don't mean a studio backdrop and etc. But what it does do is it gives us a competitive edge because we can create things that other people don't have. In the studio that I'm using right now, which is in a house, in a home, I have a lot of available light. Well, not a lot, but I have significant available light, and it works for me. And I see a lot of my competition in this town that are posting work, obviously in studios that don't have that. And I honestly believe this gives me a significant edge over the competition. And we're always looking for that, right? That's business 101. Plus, I believe it really teaches us to see better than outdoors. Outdoor light is everywhere. We don't always want light everywhere. Light is adding a dab here and taking a dab away from over there. So I believe we develop a better artistic eye when we can immerse ourselves in creating and painting with light. So it's a controlled environment as well. We don't have weather issues, depending on what part of the country you're living in. I shoot primarily in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and in Canada, and kind of the Toronto area. So when you're in the north, you're dealing with snow, and when you're in the south, believe me, you don't want to be outdoors in Phoenix in July at 112 degrees or 114 degrees trying to shoot. It's just not a pleasant thing. Controlled environment, wonderful for your business and your profitability because you shoot regardless of what the weather is. You get a controlled look, a reproducible look. The trouble with going on location is that you may have done some fantastic work on this particular day, but that was that location, and that was that day, and that was that light. And for the life of you, you can't seem to reproduce that same magic all over again. In the studio, we can control the look and we can repeat the look. We can show somebody a sample. They say, I love that. I'd like something like that. And we can actually do that. Doesn't matter whether it's an overcast day or a sunny day or whatever, we can do that. So, and it's quality light all day long for the most part. Like I said, I use a lot of available light, so that's not all day, but it does give us longer shooting times, particularly if we do get into some studio lighting. There's privacy, the change rooms, the makeup rooms, baby changing stations. Yes, we've had moms bring their kids because a babysitter canceled or something like that. They don't like that. I don't mean, you know, they're 4-year-olds. I'm talking about babies in a carrier kind of thing. So, you know, you accommodate that, no big deal. So pre-designed sets, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more later in, not this presentation, but in, I believe it's section 3, developing your style. Sorry, I'm hesitating, but I'm going back to my point about trying to create room sets. And when I say create a room set, we're not really doing that. We're just using a room that's already there. We're not, having to create it and tear it down at the end of the shoot. Um, and so therefore you decorate the room according to what you want. Um, so we can have these areas set up. There could be a bedroom area that's all set up, good to go. There can be a living room area, all sorts of different areas that you've got cordoned off, already decorated, just move in and start shooting. Wardrobe packages. We have certain theme sessions. We'll get into this on section 3 again too, that are popular, that are racy, that are at a premium price, because there's usually work in setting these things up and tearing them down again. I'm referring to, and you'll see samples of this later on, the wet set and the dark angel set and things like that. That's what I mean by wardrobe packages. They're just specialty themes that people wouldn't likely have. Our dark angel theme, for instance, we have some special tattered material and a big set of adult size black angel wings. People don't usually have that in their lingerie collection. So shooting in the studio, safety, better efficiency because you use less time. You don't have to travel to somebody's home and haul your stuff in, haul it out and travel back home. You just get much, much better efficiency in your own studio. Easier proofing. Here's the deal, and I'll get into this again later, but you got to sell the way selling gets done, and you sell in person. You do not sell online. If you're online, you are just cutting yourself in the throat. It's easy, and it's lazy, and it's a guaranteed way of destroying your sales. I've been over this 100 times. If you've listened to my presentations, get offline. I beg you. And we'll get into that in the selling part. My point here is, when people meet, I learned this as a wedding photographer. At first, I didn't want to meet potential clients at my house, so I'd meet them at a coffee shop near them for their convenience. Once you've met them there once, you're their bitch. You got to go back there time after time after time to show proofs and deliver orders and everything else. They come to your studio for the shoot. You're on your home turf, and this is where they come for proofing, and this is where they come to pick up their orders and everything. So that's all ties into the better efficiency thing. And more creative lighting. You're not stuck with whatever is happening at the location. So how much space do you do to be able to shoot in the home? This picture is actually of an acquaintance of mine in Argentina. This is his studio. He doesn't have high ceilings, so you can see he shoots a lot of families and children. You can see what he's done here. That's only a half-high backdrop. All the lighting's down low, and he makes it all work. So he's shooting in a garage, a converted garage, being a spare room, just about anywhere other than a closet, I guess. So work with what you have. Don't buy a lot of things. Add ideas slowly and make them unique. There's no need to go overboard. Simplicity will rule in most cases here. So let's get into some of the studio lighting that we do. So natural light, as I've referred to, usually done with reflectors and occasionally with a bounce light, depending on the lighting situation. You can use studio lights if you want. We're going to take a look at mono heads, power packs, and portable speed lights. And you can look at cool lighting or continuous output lights. They come both in cool and hot. And I use those as well, but for different reasons. So building lighting designs by seeing. So I put this picture in here to illustrate what I was saying earlier about having or learning to see. So we created this period piece, this 1920s Hollywood glamour, And we still do those. That's one of our specialty sessions that we offer. So she's done up in an old, gown, and that's actually the girl she brought with her that's lying on the settee in the background. We had her hair done up and her makeup done up like the 1920s. And then it was lighting this set and to get the dramatic look that we wanted. So we wanted deep shadows. We wanted um, shape. You can see how an accent light adds shape to her chest with shadowing. And this isn't a dodge and burn technique that so many photographers are doing today. This is an old technique called light. You either have light or you don't have light. So the way that we created that, the hair accent lights, the light that's on the background that's just so, and so on and so on. We had some lights, we wanted the shadow on the side of her face to be dark but not jet black. So we needed to add a fill light, but the fill light was destroying other parts of the compositions. We had to put gobos up to prevent it from spilling onto areas where we didn't want it. It's a lot to set up, but it teaches you to see. That's an important part of success in photography, whether it's boudoir or anything else. So power pack lights, if you want to go that way, they're centralized power packs, and then you plug in light heads. Not too many photographers, I think, really using this other than in the commercial area, but some do. I had power packs similar to this over the years. I don't now. I've gone with all mono lights now, but this is one alternative. I just find them for what we do and the very, very fine light control that we get into. I find these lights very hard to control, just too much work. The mono light is independent. They're all independent, so you can control the lighting as fine as you want. And I want to talk about brands for a second. I made the mistake in the beginning of buying whatever was on sale. So I'd have two of this brand and another of this brand and a third brand. And it got to be quite a mess because every brand uses different accessories, and then you'd need a reflector, but the reflector you have in your hand doesn't fit the light that you're using with. And pretty soon I got rid of everything. I sold everything. I cleared out to the bare floor, and I replaced it all with new equipment, only I stayed with one brand. There's a lot of good lighting out there. I happen to use Elinchrom, but that means nothing. I've been a fan of Elinchrom for decades. But whatever you have, stay with it and build on it. Reflectors, multiple sizes. Got to have lots of reflectors, different colors, gold surfaces, silver, translucent, herringbone, you name it, I've got them. And we use them. Umbrellas. Umbrellas I don't use as much in boudoir because umbrellas throw everything. They're great for lighting a large area. If I had a family group of 12 people, certainly I'd look to umbrellas. But in boudoir photography, where I'm looking for fine control, not so much on the umbrella front. Soft boxes of every size. I have them all the way from large 4-foot by 6-foot soft boxes down to small, that's, I forget, 17 inches by 24 or something like that. The larger the soft box, the softer the light. Also has to do with the proximity of the light to the subject, but that's a good rule of thumb. And it's considered as the closest thing to window light that you can get inside the studio with strobes. Strip lights, absolutely my favorite light of all time. I have several of them. I don't go with the large, all mine are medium, which means they're about 12 inches across by 36 inches deep. Wonderful for creating really controlled, fine controlled lighting effects. And I have some sample slides coming up. You're going to see some of that. Octadomes and other large things, pretty much the same to me as a large 4 by 6 foot softbox. You have an octadome, nothing wrong with it. Don't sell it. Keep it, use it, it'll work fine. The other real trick is honeycomb grids. These I use extensively. Now, one of the few things that this industry has done is to standardize on 7-inch reflectors. They may have different connectors to the flash heads, but the outer diameter, 7 inch, is pretty common. Of course, I say that, and the brand I talked about, Elinchrom, just changed to 7.5 just to mess everybody up. But 7 is pretty common, and you can get lots of these very fine honeycomb grids. Typically, you'll see them in 10, 20, 30, and 40 degree. I use a lot of 10s. I probably have 6 or 7 10 degrees, and I have 2 that are all the way down to 3 degrees. Very specialty items. And we use them in some situations, more so on the kind of centerfold look than the boudoir bedroom kind of look. Snoots are good. You can get snoots and snoots that have a honeycomb grid. So continuous lighting is a thing that a lot of people look to. Some advantages and disadvantages. You see these multiple bulbs. You see how these soft boxes, we've opened them up. You can see that there's 5 bulbs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yes. The idea behind that is each bulb is exactly color balanced for 5,600 degrees Kelvin. So your color balance never changes. Your power might change, but your color balance is always consistent. When a bulb, a fluorescent bulb or any other kind of bulb, is on a rheostat of some sort, its color balance changes as its intensity changes, and that's a problem for obvious reasons. Hot lights, all the same information, except they run really hot. And so I got rid of my hot lights and I went to cool lights. So put all of this together, and there are hundreds of variations of all of this, and you're going to play until you find the one that's right for you. I don't believe you should let a photographer tell you what equipment to buy. This is a big thing in our industry. You know, you go to a seminar or you watch buy a video from such and such a photographer, and they use this kind of lighting, and immediately you feel like you should go out and buy that. And it's very rare that you need to do that in all reality, unless you have nothing, I suppose. But I believe it's great to look at photographers' works. It's great to attend seminars. It's great to buy a video. Don't worry about the equipment they're using so much as the effect that they're able to create with the equipment that they're using, and figure out what you already own that you can create the same effect. So how many lights do you need? How about none? So this shoot, this was a seminar that I held. Actually, this was that $550 a night hotel room I told you about earlier. And this is the second floor. The bedroom's on the second floor, and it's called the tower. And you can't see all the sides, but these windows you see go all the way around. So it's really cool. So all we did is we brought up some reflectors and we shot away. And that other picture on the right-hand side is the same room. We had 3 models there that day. So it's the same room, except in the downstairs living room area. And all of this is just available light with reflectors, and we got some stunning work. So not a single penny in flash units, not portable or studio or anything. The more available light I can get, the better I'm loving it these days. Well, I wish I had a room like this. I don't. But if you could get a room like that, snap it up. There are some downsides to available light. It's unpredictable. You can have an overcast day, unless you're in Phoenix, where we get, 360 days of sun. But generally, you've got time of day and time of year considerations. You've got overcast or stormy situations. Your light changes. Sunny day, a cloud goes by, the exposure changes, and then it changes back again. So it does present its own challenges, but it's worth it. It can get dark even never mind nighttime. I'm not talking about dusk or nighttime. I've had days that are so heavily overcast that it's just ridiculous. I feel like postponing, but I usually don't because I don't like doing that to a client. But you deal with it. It may mean you get out some artificial lights, but there are challenges to natural light, but it's worth it. So making natural light work, in this slide here, there's I want to illustrate two different things. Number one, playing with multiple color balances in the same photograph. So the light coming in through the window, it's a bright sunny day, as you can see. The light coming in through the window is fully on daylight / cloudy because it's filtering itself through some shears. So some of it will carry a blue tinge, other will be perfectly daylight. But the background is a room, and a room is full of tungsten or warm colored light. And a lot of people, and I initially used to think, oh, that's a problem. How am I going to balance these colors? And then I realized you don't. That's exactly what you want. You're creating a real life situation. So having multiple color balances in a single photograph is an awesome thing, not a bad thing. You have to control them to make sure that the primary subject is well lit and well color balanced. But technically, I let most of this shoot, and the shoots that I do like this, I let the skin tones go to the cool side of things. And that cool offset by the warm background is a really cool, really, I was going to say hot instead of cool. Well, you know what I mean. And it also means that I'm shooting at much higher ISOs. These pictures you're looking at, usually when I'm shooting this particular scene, I'm somewhere between 3200 and 6400 ISO, which you may cringe at. But I'm shooting, these pictures were taken with a Canon 6D, which I am totally okay with. I just did a canvas for a customer, a boudoir customer, 36 by 48 inches, great big huge canvas she wanted for her bedroom. Shot at 6400, and it came in and it was gorgeous. You weren't talking about grain or noise or anything else. It was just stunning. So on older cameras, not so much, but these newer sensors and the newer cameras are just awesome. Now, in that particular camera, I'll trust it up to 6400 at 12,200 or 800, whatever. Yeah, you'll see some noise, and still, that is often okay. Don't dismiss noise because it can be a really good thing. Anyways, the other thing I wanted to point out about these pictures is because it was a bright sunny day, we get strong direct sunlight. You can see some of it coming in through the folds and the shears. And I love that. It's not something to be avoided and double up and say, oh, I got to get rid of that and just have this nice flat light coming in. No, let it come in. Position the model so it's all over the place. These are just two samples. We took a whole bunch like this. And I thought it was awesome. The customer thought it was awesome. This, by the way, is the girl who said, man, you got some skills. So, yeah, just go with that kind of look. Nothing wrong with it. So if you do need to start working with lights, this is an image taken with just one light, just one softbox positioned as you see in the diagram. And that's all there is to it. Two lights. These are the strip lights that I told you about. And they're not out in front. They're at the sides of the model coming across. And this, again, is how we start developing this look to the lighting. If you look at her, both her legs and probably her forward leg is the best way. You see how there's light on either side of her legs, but a dark stripe down the center. That's the hallmark of this kind of lighting. So sometimes you have to be very careful about where you position people within the zone, so to speak. But for accenting or adding shape to the body, if you look at her chest area, again, this isn't dodge and burn. This is all just done with the placement of the lights to create roundness, to create depth, and everything else. 3 lights. So now position in the front, a main light, softbox, a fill light, softbox, hair light, just gently adding a touch of shine to her hair. And again, just kind of awesome depth and curvature and roundness. Now we get into more complex things we call either centerfold lighting or complex glamour lighting, where we've used multiple light heads. This one isn't too bad. This is only 4 light heads, one in the background, one on the hair, and then a main and a fill. But we've taken this further, where there's one light kind of on her hip, another light on her chest area, to get the real Playboy kind of look. It is complex to set up, though, and complex to execute. So I'd leave centerfold style photography till later in your career, because first of all, there's no money in it, and there is money in boudoir. I've seen extreme glamour use up to 32 lights on a single model. Took a crew of 8 all day long to set up. This shot that you're looking at uses 5 lights, all on 10-degree honeycomb grids, and 1 light on her face with a 3-degree honeycomb grid. So again, it's very finicky to set up, and the model can't move a lot. She's basically got to be a mannequin, because once the lights are set, she's in the zone. That's all there is to it. And of course, if you're new to studio photography, professional photography, there's no auto anything here. This is manual all the way. So you had better be familiar with how to read the light, how to set your camera. I know cameras are fully automated today, and there's a tendency for people to take advantage of that, but the camera is not that smart. All auto does, or any of the automatic settings, is to get you to the wrong place faster than ever before. As a professional photographer that's charging money for their work, you've got to know how to create this all on your lonesome. So it all starts with using the light meter. And there are basically 2 types of light meters today. There are incident light meters or reflected light meters. No matter what kind of light meter is, they all do the same thing. They're all trying to analyze the scene and average it out to 18% neutral gray. You've heard of gray cards. Here's where they come into play. So what is reflected light? Well, let's go to the next slide. So reflected light. Light comes from Mr. Sunshine there, hits the subject, and then bounces back towards the camera. And the camera's got a built-in meter, and it's reading the amount of light that comes in through the lens. So in other words, it's the light that reflected off the subject that you're photographing. So because that meter in the camera is set to calculate 18% neutral gray, which years and years and years ago, the powers that be took an average of everything in the world, and that's where they came up with this 18% reflectance value. And we've used it ever since. So it's fine on average scenes, but scenes are very rarely 100% average. So for instance, I've used this example before. Imagine a couple getting married, the guy in a black tuxedo and the girl in a white wedding dress. Neither of them are going to reflect 18% neutral gray. You photograph the groom in his black tuxedo, and the camera is going to make that black tuxedo look gray. And then you photograph the wedding dress, and the camera is going to try and make the wedding dress look gray. So it's a very fast way of getting 2 wrong answers. So how do you deal with that? Well, number 1, you could use an incident light meter. Incident light meter doesn't care about the subject because it doesn't measure the light coming off of them. It measures the light that falls on them and then tells you where 18% neutral gray is. This is bang on exposure. It doesn't get much better than this. So it's not built into the camera. You got to have a handheld unit. You got to, um, take the reading and dial it into your camera, but that's okay. It's not a big deal. You'll get beautiful exposures. What's the other thing that you can do? Let me just back up a slide. When shooting weddings, which I don't do anymore, but I did for most of my career, and hundreds or thousands and thousands of them, I didn't have time to take, because with photojournalism, you're just on the move all the time. This isn't like the old days of film. We're taking hundreds or thousands of images, and it's click, 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 click. So most cameras, I shoot the Canon system, but most cameras have an exposure compensation dial. So when I'm zoomed in and I'm using my reflected built-in meter on a black tuxedo, and the camera calculates the exposure, my brain is saying, yes, I know that's wrong, and I'm going to dial in a compensation. On the Canon cameras, the compensating dial is on the back. I believe on Nikon, it's on the top. Either way, I used to joke that at the end of the day, the sorest muscle in your body had better be your thumb, because you're compensating for the errors that the automatic system is going to make on every single picture. You're dialing it down, you're dialing it up, and your brain is fully engaged because you're making these calculations in your head. So that's the deal on that. That's why an incident meter is so much better when we have the time to use it, like we do in boudoir photography. Excuse me, choking up. I get emotional about these things, I'm going to turn off the mic while I sip. I'm back. So, okay, metering. Understanding f-stops. Another thing that's harder with today's cameras is that they have so many different options. The scale at the top are what we call full f-stop numbers. They're the traditional f-stops. And you should have these memorized. Well, usually you start around maybe f1.4. Then 2, 2.8, 4, 5.6, 8, 11, 16, 22. You should have between 1.4 and 32, you should just memorize. Just the same way that a musician memorizes scales, you memorize f-stops. And you can say them forward and backwards, and you know in a split second what the right compensation factor is between them. Now, digital cameras have the ability to do half stops and third stops. We used to do that in the old days too, but it wasn't finely calculated. If you wanted a half stop, you just turn the dial till it was halfway between two numbers, because it was mechanical, not electronic. So we have the half stop F number scale and the third stop F number scale. So it brings in a lot more numbers to deal with. Don't worry. I don't worry too much about them. If I see an F2.4, I know that's somewhere between a 2 and a 2.8, and I'm okay with that. The dynamic range on these modern digital sensors is so much better than it was in the early years of digital. Early years of digital, you were lucky if you had a half stop plus or minus dynamic range. Now we have several stops of dynamic range, as film did in the old days. But okay, enough said. Memorize this. So here's another example of using mixed light. So you see the cool light coming into that same window, this same window you saw a second ago. You see the room set and you see the warm room light. There's nothing to be gained by making the room look the same color balance as the incoming light from the window. And I didn't correct her. I let her go. If you look at her skin tones, they're a little bit on the blue side. And yeah, I could have corrected it and made it look warmer, but I kind of like the bluish cool tones offset by the warm tones. And why is that, do you think? Well, I don't have a slide of the color wheel right now, but if you all remember the color wheel, what are the best two complementary colors? And you see this in advertising and commercial photography all the time. Guess what's across from the blues? The oranges. Those two combinations of colors are well known in design theory as being complementary and highly desirable. We're just using them in photography, using nothing but the light that's already there. So we meter the main light. In this case, what is the main light? Well, the main light is the light coming from the window. So I set my exposure for that, and then I try and use the background in such a way. That's the same corner, by the way. This is all done at the same window. I just took the lamp out with this one, so you don't get that really warm. Well, you do in one of the images, but not in the others. So I on the bottom left, I took a reflector and bounced some light onto the gray wall in the background just to bring it up in exposure a little bit. Then the one on the bottom right is shot into the opposite corner where it's being partially illuminated by the window. And then the one at the top right is with the lamp put back in place, adding that warmish light. So dealing with backlight. So the studio cat has decided to audit this session, and kind of being a mess there. He's gone. So strong light can be a big problem and a big advantage. So these photographs are overly backlit, but I added enough light so that she's not silhouetted. How did I do that? I did it actually with a couple of reflectors, and occasionally I have to have a fill flash. So it's a little bit of both. The fill flash, when I use it as a small softbox, as a studio light and a small softbox, turned around and bounced off the opposite wall and ceiling so that it comes back with just a gentle, soft fill as opposed to blasting it out with a studio strobe. Then I adjust the exposure to let the background go extra bright to get this hazy kind of look. I wouldn't do this on every single picture, but it's not a bad technique, and people do seem to react fairly well to it. So the other thing that we want to look at is flare. You know, it's ironic that I spent half of my career trying to get rid of lens flare, and now I'm spending the other half trying to put it back in again. You just can't win. So my rule today is damn the lens flare, we'll add more if there isn't enough. And people seem to like this. Now, the one on the left actually isn't natural lens flare. The one on the right is. The sun was out, and that's what it did. The one on the left is added in post-production using alien skin, I think. Yes, alien skin. But people like these. As a photographer, I sometimes look at work like this and I say, well, what the heck? Why didn't you just use a lens shade or fix that? And I realized that we didn't fix it because that's what people want. They like that. Also, you can do this without the fill light as a semi-silhouette. We do this all the time, and this is some of the most popular poses we do. Almost everybody buys these poses, particularly the one with the high heels in the doorway. So we have these 3 stools we push together to form a platform, and then they lie on it, and we position their feet on the frame of the door. The shears are hanging, obviously, and I take a few with just the light that's there. The top right-hand one is a good example, just the light that's there. And it's adding wonderful shape, accenting her chest nicely and her legs nicely. And then I'll take a few where I add some fill to it just to give some options. But I think in all the times I've done that, it's almost always this semi-silhouette that sells. The one on the left is the same area, except the stool's removed. She's leaning up against a love seat we have hardwood floors, so that's just the reflection on the hardwood floor. And that one was taken on a cloudy day at 12,800. And I don't know about your monitors at home, but you can clearly see the digital noise. And to me, that's totally okay. Totally okay. adds to the artistic feel of the image. Customer liked it too. So other things we're looking for, you need to watch for, because almost everybody, unless they're a model, carries a few extra pounds. So double chins are ideal, noses are ideal, eyeglass reflections, skin texture problems. In boudoir photography, every single woman who's ever had a child is worried usually about stretch marks and wrinkles and miscellaneous scars and love handles and things that sag. And through clever posing and wardrobe and lighting and camera angle, we deal with each and every one of these problems to make them look better than they ever thought they could look. We want to stun them. And yeah, we do some Photoshop techniques too. I do some limited liquify, absolutely, and we'll continue to do so. But I don't believe you should take somebody who is basically a plus size and make them look like they're a supermodel. That's not the game we have here. We want them to look as good as they can be while still looking like themselves. So we don't push it too far. The full nude. Yep, not for everybody. Some do, some don't. We make that option available to the customer if they want it. And it is remarkable how many say they don't want anything to do with topless or nude until they get halfway through the session, and all of a sudden they're all okay with it because they've started to relax and they're starting to feel comfortable. So it's the same thing. Make it artistic. It's not just two studio lights and a nude girl standing in front of a backdrop. Let's do something clever. In this case, on the far right, it's the two strip lights that we did before. You see that trademark dark line down the center of her body and light coming both forward and back. The one on the far left is one light coming, strip light coming from camera right. And then the one in the middle is available light, just coming in through those same windows. So that's lighting, kind of an intro to the subject and what we do with lighting, both studio lighting and available lighting. If you have some questions, I hope you do. There's a chat window on the page that was in your link. You can ask questions there. I do have some things to tell you about. 2017, I've declared for photography school, I do this every year. Last year was the year of creativity. This year is the year of progress, how to make money in your studio. Art is fine, but it don't always pay the bills, and we need to pay the bills. So this year, we're going to be doing 25 photography schoolhouse projects to drive clients to your business, to stimulate your creativity, to open your mind, and to stun the competition. This is all going to start on January 31st. This is a different program outside of this 6-part series we're on right now. We have a couple of specials on for you tonight. The Studio Workbook, which is our most popular book we've ever produced, 60 pages of lighting instructions, 3 dozen lighting diagrams, detailed equipment discussions. Normally $97.77. We have it on sale right now, $27.77. Save over $50. It's like $70. $27.77. If you want to see more about that, go to pshnow.com. It'll take you right there with all of the details, and you can grab that for just 27 bucks. Another bonus item we have is the Boudoir Posing and Idea Guide, over 150 poses and ideas. This is a cool kit. You get all these poses and ideas. You get it in what we call 4x6 at 300 DPI field cards. These are images you can print and carry in your camera case. You also get smartphone images you could put on your phone, and if you're on location or you don't want your customer to see you looking at cards, just pull up your phone and thumb through your gallery, and there's all your poses, just to remind yourself when you're in the middle of a shoot. So this is pretty darn cool. It's regularly $47.77, tonight $27.77. and it's at pshsale.com. Gold membership. This is practically giving it away for free. Normally it's $179.95 and you get the gold membership, which is cool. But we're going to give it to you for $99.95. We're going to throw in the studio lighting book. We're going to throw in another book called How I Book 17 Weddings. We're going to throw in, get the 9 ways photographers can use to improve their website conversions, and we're going to throw in the PSH Boudoir Posing and Idea Guide. So that's like $200 worth of products we're throwing in, as well as discounting it to $99.95. So there's a lot of benefits to be a gold member. I don't want to talk about it all night. It's just our premium membership. Grab it tonight for that price and get all those bonus items. Go to pshgold.com. See, we came up with all these clever little URLs to save you typing. Because I did it because I got tired of typing photography schoolhouse 100 times a day. So PSH Gold is for the gold membership. PSH Sale is for the studio lighting book. PSH Now is for the Boudoir Posing and Idea Guide. Next week, there's 2 presentations next week. On Tuesday, well, let me do this one first while it's on screen. On Thursday next week is part 2 of this presentation at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can register for that right now at pshtalk.com. It'll take you right to the registration page for part 2 of this presentation. But if you also look on our website, you'll find that the first live studio broadcast is next Tuesday night. Let me bring that up for you. So you can see where you find these things. Whoops, I just clicked the wrong thing. Okay, here we go. So if you go to photographyschoolhouse.com, that's the home page. Go to live events. Go to live broadcast for photographers. Now we do 2 different kinds. We do the webinars, which is what we're doing tonight, and we do the live studio broadcast that we call ditto cams. So ditto cams on the left, webinars on the right. So here's what we're doing tonight is part 1 of the Start Your Valentine Boudoir Business. And this is the very first fast and easy boudoir shots to build your portfolio, part 1. So if you click on that, you'll see that it's next Tuesday, and ditto cams start earlier. They start at 7 p.m. Eastern time instead of 9 p.m. So you just go here, read through. If you want to register, just click there and then hit the big old register button. Bang. It's free, doesn't cost you anything, and you'll see us live. And the cool thing about that is not pre-recorded, it is live. You can chat to us, ask questions as we're working through the chat window, so it's kind of cool. If you're not familiar with Photography Schoolhouse, you should really go there and look around. There's a ton of stuff. Anyways, that's it for tonight. Hopefully, we'll see you next Thursday night. This will be recorded and will be available. We'll be sending out links to everybody who was here tonight. So if you want to rewatch anything, or if you joined late or had to leave early, missed part of it, by all means, you can jump on and watch the recording. Thank you all for coming. Have a great day, and we'll see you hopefully next Tuesday, live from the studio. Good night, everybody.